Okay, guys, I just renewed Netflix and getting ready to watch the comeback, the 2004 Boston Red Sox, down 3-0 to the Yankees. They defeated New York three straight after that. Tuesday night, we saw the greatest political comeback in U.S. history as Donald J. Trump is going to be the 47th president of the United States. Now, stay with me. I'm going to kind of segue this into some sports, but before we get into the sports and all these comebacks, it's just amazing what we have seen leading up to this election. The back and forth between the Democrats, the Republicans, and then you listen to all the pollsters. It was the feeling was it was probably going to go the other way, but
Right.
man, Trump trounced her. That's all you can say.
Seems like, all this stuff leading up was, it seemed like the Democrats might have, Kamala might have won that election, but when it comes down to it, it is all just projections and like polls and stuff like that, and you have no idea how people are going to vote. And it was a landslide. I mean, it was pretty crazy. But I'm curious where you're going to take this comeback story thing. One thing we were talking at work. So you said 47th president because obviously he was 45.
Mm-hmm.
Should he just be like it's kind of weird because how is he the 45th and 47th? It's the same person, So like for example, when Obama won, he wasn't 44 and 45. He was just the 44th president because he won 2 terms. So it's just, I'm not saying anything bad against, Trump. I'm just saying that's kind of a funny way to look at it.
Well, it's because there's a term in between. That's the only reason.
I mean, I get that, but it's like the same guy. Like he's not 2 different guys. He's the 45th and 47th. Yeah, I know. It's just a funny way to think of it. But
it is strange.
Yes, anyway, it was pretty crazy to watch it play out. That's for sure.
Well, get your T-shirt. 45 and 47. Right. No, but what I was leading into this on the comeback, because it really is. It's unbelievable. I mean, the guy had 2 assassination attempts, indicted. We know all the backstory. What a comeback. What a comeback. And, my whole thing on the sports related thing is the 2004 Boston Red Sox. Was that the greatest comeback of all time? There's a handful, like just for example, Alex Smith. That might be the comeback of all time with that devastated leg injury. That's one of them. I mean, obviously the Patriots coming back from 28-3 to win a Super Bowl. That's a large comeback. And I kind of gave you guys a preview. Do you have any that just jump out at you?
I mean, when you messaged, I wasn't sure exactly where this was going to go. I figured this was maybe the route. I thought about that Super Bowl. There's that the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs in the 90s. They were down to the Houston Oilers. They were down like 38 points or 35 points, whatever it was.
32, and they ended up winning 41-38. Yeah.
Right. Came back and won. That one popped into my mind, but I didn't know you were going to mention the Red Sox. That was the main one I thought of. The Red Sox being down 0-3. That's the famous one.
And that's a hot topic now that it's a Netflix documentary. I haven't seen it yet. I'm getting ready to tee it up here within the next couple of weeks. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, the Red Sox team, it was awesome. I agree. And I love the 30 for 30 they did back in the 4 days in October. That almost reminds me of the OJ stuff. How many retellings, tellings do we need of this damn story? It's a great story. How about a 3-1 LeBron Cleveland Cavaliers documentary?
That's a good one. I mean, that's a good one.
The Red Sox are awesome, and Big Papi, like that is like probably the coolest baseball team there's ever been, and what they did was awesome. I mean, Kurt Schilling, the Sox. I'm not disregarding what they did, but also, I mean, my God, there's a lot of good sports stories out there. Like you're talking about Alex Smith, like individual stories. Like of all the stories, do we need 15 million docs on this? Is where I'm at.
Yeah,
I mean, it was a pretty big one too because it had been so long since the Red Sox had won a World Series. Sure. Obviously, the Red Sox-Yankees rivalry coming back from 2003 had never been done.
Yeah.
So pretty big deal. And
I'm not saying it's not a big deal. I sound like an idiot.
But you know how it goes too. You're a hater of the Fab Five. There's plenty of documentaries about the Fab Five. There's a sports moment that big, they're gonna keep retelling that story over and over.
It's crazy, man. Believe me, I actually did watch it, and it is very good. But it is also like, holy cow! So like you're talking about the Fab Five. You know what the best piece of literature or video ever was Mitch Albom's original book.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
The more and the ESPN original doc was the best. Yeah, more and more, the further and further we get from that, the worse and worse it gets, man. It's that first big, and think about it, like when they got Chris Webber didn't do it, right? Am I remembering the doc?
He didn't do it. Yeah.
But they got everybody else, and that's what made it special. Is it the first time we're seeing all these guys sit down and talk about an interview or talk about what happened. And I always thought that was cool. And I think we've gotten that with the 04 Red Sox, but granted, Netflix will take a payday any way they can get it, and people still give a shit about that story in that team, especially because of what you said, Matt. It's Boston, and
Right.
and the whole 100 years of backstory that went into it.
Yeah. Well, you do make a good point though. There was a couple really good ones prior to the Netflix one, and it's about money, but if it's well done, I'll watch it, especially if they have new takes,
What-
different things.
I'm sorry, and also the timing strikes me as weird.
Yeah.
Once we cross into football season, and we've talked about it on previous pods with the World Series, and it's like, man, what a great World Series with the two teams that are matched up. It felt like it was just swept under the rug almost because it's of where it fell on the calendar. That's
Yeah,
a
I
topic
mean,
for another day, but
maybe they were hoping that the World Series, went a little longer, or the playoffs for the
Right.
MLB went a little longer.
Probably
And
was.
they were going to release it during the World Series. Dave Roberts obviously manages the Dodgers, and he was on that Red Sox team. So maybe they were planning some sort
Right.
of connection there. But yeah, you can't drop stuff like that just in the heart of football season. I mean,
Yeah.
people
the best time for that is, and I think Untold, when they drop their like football documentaries, they always drop it like the Connor Stallions, for example. It's like a week before the season when you're
Perfect.
at a fever pitch for anything football, anything baseball. By the end of the baseball season, you're ready for the next sport.
Yeah.
So
Right.
Now, there was a comeback story. You probably would go along with this, Jared, being the golfing guy you are. How about the 2019 Masters with Tiger?
you
Yeah.
can't beat
Wow.
that, can you? I don't know how
That's
you
an
tough.
individual
do.
one. Yep.
I mean, everything that went into it. The fact that since then, it seems like Tiger's really pretty much been on the straight and narrow. He's got the good thing going with his son. It seems like there's only been positive Tiger press really in the last 6-7 years. So that one was the best, man, and it kind of spoiled us really with how magical that was.
Yeah.
And that felt like, I mean, we all love Tiger Woods and grew up, I guess Ted, you didn't grow up, but you watched, when he was in the prime of his career,
Watched all of it.
right. Watched all of it. I mean, we've talked about that a lot on this podcast, but it does feel like all the personal stuff that he went through, all the injuries that he went through, if he wouldn't have got one more major, and then of course it's at the Masters, that's like his
Right.
major, it would have felt like, man, like it's not a complete story, because
Mhm.
he's come back to play, but he's clearly not the same player that he used to be. He got that one major. We got to witness one more Tiger comeback. Like that really was like, not like you said, Jared,
Right.
now he can just play with his son. He can play in these majors here and there and, whatever. It's fun to talk about. But he got that one more Masters. That was like, cool. We're done with. We all still want to see
Storybook is
Tiger
the
win. We
storybook
want to
is
see
closed.
it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Storybook closed. It was perfect.
Yeah, that's definitely right up there at the very top. One other one here in the state, maybe no other podcast will talk about it. The 1975 Division II football national champion, Northern Michigan Wildcats,
Oh,
not winning a game the previous year, and then coming back and winning the national championship the next year. And that's a hell of a comeback story.
Yeah, how did that happen? Did they get a new coach? That really is mind-boggling.
It is. They did get a new coach. They just pulled it all together. Mariucci was another year older, and I watched him play college football. That dude could throw the ball, man. He was really good, especially at Division II. So
What you're saying is there's hope for Michigan next year?
maybe.
well,
Let's hope.
especially now with the transfer portal and all that stuff.
Beautiful.
Right.
So that D2, and we've talked about that a little bit, and we were maybe going to do a little more on that for a future podcast. So that Northern Michigan, was it the GLIAC back then, or was it completely with Ferris and Grand Valley, or was it a completely different?
You
It
know
probably
what?
has some funny name like the Western Pine Conference or something that was like old school. That's how I like to imagine it.
Yeah, it wasn't the GLIAC, but you got a good question there that I don't have the answer to. But yeah,
I'm just curious if like what teams they were even playing, like because Grand Valley State used to just be like Grand Valley State College. It wasn't university until like
well, Central
the
Michigan
80s,
was.
I want to say
Central Michigan was Division II. They actually won the national championship, I think, a couple of years prior. And
So this
one of the
is
big.
kind of so they beat in the first round of playoffs. They were at Boise State. So they
There
beat
you
Boise State. They beat Grand Valley State. Saginaw Valley was around. Eastern Michigan they played. Nebraska, Omaha they played. Youngstown State, Central Michigan. So Wisconsin, Whitewater. Kind of a fun little schedule.
Pretty
And then
good
they
it is
beat,
a fun schedule.
and then they beat Northwestern Kentucky. in the actual championship game in Sacramento. So
Yeah, and the other tie-in to us, we went to Corunna. One of their starting offensive linemen, Randy Thayer from Corunna, Michigan, one of my good buddies and teammates at Corunna, was one of the standouts there and played on both teams, the winless team and the national champions. So pretty amazing.
Well,
That is cool.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it would be fun to. We've talked about maybe doing a deeper dive into that whole story. It would be fun to explore that a little bit.
Absolutely. I thought you had some story about you were hitchhiking up there. I know at Central you ended up hitchhiking, but weren't you gonna go to Northern to play football on that squad, or what was the story?
Well, I had a phone call from one of the coaches. I wasn't home. My mom took the call. I didn't call the coach back. Whatever.
That's right. That's what
it was. One of those deals.
Man, that's like Ted. Didn't you have the opportunity to interview Magic Johnson out in Seattle or something?
Oh yeah,
you didn't take it.
Story.
So that's like strike one was not going to Northern Michigan and being on a national championship football squad. Strike two was not interviewing Magic Johnson in Seattle.
Oh man, I will tell you, I'm not a depressed person.
I'm just kidding.
No, but I'm just going to tell you flat out, when that went down, I was flying high, and then all of a sudden the interview got canceled.
Right.
And I was in clinical depression for at least a week after that, man. It was gut wrenching for sure.
That'd be a big one to miss.
You probably had a lot more fun going to Central for a semester and having the time of your life probably than all 4 years than those football guys had in that snowy climate, man. So
you got that right. And I hung out with those guys at the North End bar a few times. Those offensive linemen up there, they were a different breed. I can just tell you that.
I mean, you have to be if you're going to school up there with you got your snowshoes to get to class during those winter months and stuff.
That's right. These big tunnels.
Yeah, but no, that was an interesting way to tie in the election there with the comeback. I don't know what you guys think. I know we don't dip our toes into politics too much, and I think that's fine. But we are recording the night after the election, so it's hard not to at least mention it. But we've talked about it before, Ted. You've talked about you don't know if you've ever seen a time where things are just so divided as they are right now. And I was thinking earlier, a tie-in, we talk mostly about sports. It seems like politics and like this election and everything now has such a sports feel to it. And I think one reason we love sports, one team wins, one team loses. One team gets a win, a notch in the win column. One team gets a loss in a notch in the loss column. Both teams move on. You can argue. You can, talk trash to your buddies. You can do all that. A win and a loss in sports. It's very concrete.
Right.
And it seems like people are treating the election and the results of this election like it's a sports contest where one side wins and one side loses. One side has the flags on their car and the flags in their front yard and the shirts and the hats and all that kind of stuff like they're a Michigan fan or an Ohio State fan. And I was just thinking, I understand, yes, literally one side won, one side lost, if you look at it that way. But we're all supposed to be winning, right? When it comes to an election and people getting into politics and public service positions, local elections and even all the way up to president and everything, they're supposed to be looking out for the greater good of the American citizens, right? No one should be losing. And I was just thinking, the way people are reacting to this is like when Ohio State beats Michigan and they're just talking trash to Michigan fans. And it's no, wait. I mean, certain people are upset because their candidate didn't win. But it shouldn't be that we want to bury the other side, and it just seems like we've moved in that direction where people they just dislike the other side so much. They want them to lose as if they're a rival fan of their football team or something like that. And it just seems like such a mess that hopefully things turn around because, I mean, Ted, you have kids that are older now you have grandkids now. And, you do start thinking of things that way. You think, man, I do still have my life to live, but you think about your kids, your young kids that, man, I hope they grow up and everything doesn't fall apart because you're thinking about their future. So, again, I know we don't get too deep into this kind of stuff, but it's just crazy to see how it all plays out. And hopefully things can simmer down, cooler heads can prevail and everyone can work together. I mean, because that's what it's all about. You hope that everyone can work together, figure some stuff out and let's get the trajectory going back up, for the country.
Well said, Matt. And again, we're not here to get into partisan politics, but we're all Americans. Like I say at the end of every podcast, be kind. Let's get along. Let's try to make this country better if we can. And I'm glad. I'm glad on the one hand that it didn't come down to, oh, this might be a rigged election. I mean, there's no doubt. There's no doubt we had a winner. He won the popular vote too, so take that off the table. So we don't have to worry about the whole electoral college thing. And let's move forward. Let's hope things turn out well, because there's they have all the power now. The Republicans have all the power, and they're going to be setting a lot of precedent on what happens in this country the next 4 years and beyond. So we'll see what happens.
Yep.
Congratulations to Donald Trump. We'll just got to say it.
Yeah,
45 and 47.
Yeah.
Here's what I've realized: if there's anything these last 2 months, the second I say anything political, I sound like an idiot, according to either half of the people on one side or half of the people the other way. So it's crazy how it seems like it is very divisive, and hopefully this is the end of it. Hopefully whatever happens from here on out, it's a positive step. We will see. I don't know. At some point, I just want to see some things get done. I've always said I'd never noticed really a difference no matter who's president. But again, I'm dumb. I've never paid attention to politics really, even until a little bit this election. One thing I thought was, this is my first time ever really watching the coverage. It is fascinating to see. I'm a map guy, and the electoral map, we were talking pre-pod, it was fascinating how it's like within a first state or two, they're looking at certain counties and deciding, like, basically projecting the entire election on how this one county percentage of people voted. And I can't get enough of maps. When I was a kid, that's what you flipped open in the social studies book. You looked at all the maps at the back of the book. So I thought it was kind of fascinating to watch, but also just a little bit depressing. Not necessarily who won or who lost, but just that people are like getting that angry about it. No matter what happened. I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna, like, every word I say, I feel like I'm about to step in like a bear trap. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. And
I think that's kind of part of the problem, because you have to walk on eggshells just talking about this stuff. I was talking to a buddy at work, and Ted, you remember these times. My buddy at work was saying, one thing that social media and all this kind of stuff has brought on, everyone thinks they have a voice. Everyone wants to get their opinion out there. I mean, we're doing that right now. We have a podcast where we put our opinions out there. So, okay. But it used to be, Ted, you probably remember, where you didn't talk about politics. You didn't talk about religion. You didn't talk about some of these hot button topics in your house because of what you're talking about, Jared. You don't want to offend people, and you don't want to lose friends. You don't want to lose family just because you voice an opinion. And if you're being, disrespectful, and if you're being, offensive in the opinion, okay, that's different. But if you're just having a conversation like what we are right now, people should be able to do that. You should be able to have a civil conversation, maybe even have some disagreements, and not lose friendships and family and stuff like that just because you see things in a different way.
It is kind of funny. It's like there is nothing more riveting than a political debate with you and whoever, but it always turns like
you can almost sense. You can sense when it starts to...
Oh yeah. Politics and religion. They always say stay away from those discussions.
Alive is. It seemed like this election was the most like hyped, anticipated election. Hyped that's not even the right words, but people really seem to give a shit about it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, is that fair to say in your lifetime this was the most like anticipated election there's really ever been?
I think it was that, and it was also the most volatile, I think, as well. I mean, it was just vicious, and we've had mudslinging forever, but I think the extent of it for this election cycle,
became all it was, really.
Yeah, I know.
That was all it's about. How
both sides.
This other person is doing is negative, and that's why it's like, hopefully, I don't know. It seems like you guys understand this better than I would. It sounds like maybe it's lined where Trump can actually do some things.
Hopefully.
He seems, from what he said, as some decent intentions. I don't know. Some also, again, some negative intentions, depending on who you voted for. But we'll see where it goes. I'm not ready to cancel the country. Let's see what happens. And
absolutely.
We're positive.
We're all Americans.
We're all Americans. The big thing, and this is one area that I haven't paid as much attention as I probably should as an American, like you just said, Ted. People always say, like, on the local level, that's where that's where differences can really be made. And when you make those votes, really pay attention to those local people, because they can actually make changes. Like you said, Jared, you don't even notice sometimes, one way or the other with who's president, but those local people, they could really make changes in your schools, in the infrastructure of your county and stuff like that. So that's where you can maybe see some change. And, that's probably an area we've lived here in Charlotte for about 8 years now. Admittedly, I haven't paid as close attention as I probably should at the local politicians, but probably same with you, Jared. You're kind of moving around a lot, so it's probably kind of hard to who are you voting for? Are you still Shiawassee County voting?
Right.
That kind of thing. So
yeah, it's a weird time we live in, man.
It is.
It seems like it's simmered down. I'll be going into last night. I was like, what the hell is going to happen? No matter who won or lost, man, there might be some serious fallout.
Right.
Seems like
I'll
there
say
hasn't been,
too.
so that's good.
I'll say too, I know we're running long on this. We said we weren't going to, but we're running long.
Never
on this.
fails.
One thing I don't think we talked about on the podcast, I know we did off the record, but so now President Trump, he did do the Joe Rogan podcast.
Right.
And I saw some people talking about how we are seeing how the new generation and new media, if you want to call it that, is having a really, really big effect on this, because they said that they think Kamala Harris she turned down Joe Rogan's, and then Trump did Rogan's podcast, and then Rogan said that he supports Trump. They said that swung things very seriously in Trump's favor. So we're seeing how podcasts and social media and stuff like that has a big effect on people.
That's and regardless of who you I think the campaign wasn't ran the smartest way, where I thought, say what you will about Trump, I thought he was smart with, like you said, going on Joe Rogan, doing these podcasts that we probably don't give a shit about, Nelk Boys and those other type of shows. But he did them because young Americans seem to follow me. These people have millions of viewers for some reason. So I thought he was smart in going on those shows. And I really think Kamala would have benefited from going on Joe Rogan. I mean, you think about a demographic that was not her demographic. What was the worst that could have happened? I really thought she would have been smart going on it. I know that she tried, and there was a back and forth on whether was it ever possible. I don't know. If it was possible, I think it would have been smart if she did go on there.
It almost makes you wonder if her advisors were telling her to put down, rules that he wouldn't do it, so it would look better for her. You know what I mean?
To make it look like it was on him, type of
thing.
Yeah.
And that's listen, I know people don't like Rogan. Especially after he went in and endorsed Trump. His show, part of the magic of his show, I mean, we do a podcast, we know something about this, is going into his studio, sitting just him and his producer for 3, and basically you're locked in this room. And once you move the parameters of what that show was, you weren't doing the Joe Rogan experience anymore.
Right.
So I got why he wasn't going for it. I understand why she maybe didn't feel it was worth it to do that late in the campaign cycle. So I get both sides, but I don't think in my opinion, I thought it would have helped her.
Yeah. Yep. Trump did Rogan. Kamala did Saturday Night Live. that was kind of funny.
It was a good little segment. So
it was funny, but it was the Saturday right before the election, right?
Everybody had their mind made up.
I saw some people say it probably didn't even affect anything, but she gave it a shot, and her little segment was actually pretty funny. So.
Yeah, it was. And by the way, Jared, I'm a map guy too. How about that? The blood is thick. I've always been intrigued by maps forever.
You're the generation. I think we've talked about this. You probably still have physical maps in your car, because I know my dad still does.
I do.
Dude, it was. I don't know. That was my first time watching it. It was. One, can we figure out how to get this all decided at the same time? I don't understand the ins and outs, but I don't understand why we're still not sure officially who won. I don't know. It's what is this? Should we be able to figure it out in a couple hours? That was, I guess, my biggest surprise. First time diving in, watching this stuff. It's you don't even know. It's really nothing's coming out. It's
you're watching a lot of votes to officially count, but they've counted enough to where it's over.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.